Hi everybody and welcome to the third video on quadratic inequalities. In this video, we try and do a bit of something different, is learn how to interpret the graph in terms of other sections in maths. So quadratic inequalities falls under the section of algebra, but it's closely linked to functions. So let's go through these three examples and see how. So the first one we have is 2x squared plus 5x plus 3 is greater than 0. If we look at this, this here is an equation of a parabola. So what we're doing is we're looking at where is the parabola greater than 0. And specifically, where is the y value of this parabola greater than 0? So first, let's start by factorizing. So when we factorize this, I'm going to do the factorizing over here. The factors of 2x is x and the factors of 1 is 3 and 1. Cross multiply. I'm going over these steps quickly, but if you do not understand, please watch our previous videos where we go through it in detail. So this sign would go over here and that sign would go over here. So the factors are 2x plus 3, and this here is x plus 1 is greater than 0. What these points here correspond to are the x-intercepts. So these correspond to the x-intercepts. So to solve for the x-intercepts, that's what we're doing when we're getting the critical values. So remember, the critical values is when we equate these two products to 0. So we have 2x plus 3 is equal to 0. So 2x is equal to negative 3. And then x is equal to negative 3 over 2, and then the other one is x plus 1 is equal to 0, so x is equal to negative 1. What these 2 points correspond to are our two x-intercepts of the parabola. Now, if I have to then draw, and this is a positive parabola because the coefficient is positive. So the positive parabola has this shape, okay? And then the x-intercepts are minus 3 over 2, and minus 1. Now remember, we said that this is looking at the parabola. Where is the parabola greater than 0, the y value? So that corresponds to where it's above. This here is the x-axis. So where is it above the x-axis? So it's above the x-axis for this piece over here and for this piece over here. So we're going to say, what are the corresponding x values? So this here is strictly above the x-axis, so we're not including these points. So this here is when x is less than minus 3 over 2, and this part here is when x is greater than negative 1. That is when our parabola is greater than 0 or positive or above the x-axis. So it's related to functions that a quadratic inequality corresponds to a parabola. The critical values are our x-intercepts, and then we're looking at whether it's greater than 0 above the x-axis or less than 0 above the below the x-axis. Let's look at another 2 examples. So for the second one, we've got x squared minus 5x plus 6 is greater or equal to 0. So this here is again an equation of a parabola. We're going to factorize it, so we're going to get x minus 6. X plus 1 is greater or equal to 0. Oh, those aren't the correct factors, because when we multiply negative 6 and plus 1, it gives us negative 6. And that's always good to do the checks. So this should actually be minus 2 and minus 3. So we get x minus 2 is equal to 0. So x is equal to 2. And x minus 3 is equal to 0. So x is equal to 3. So these 2 points correspond to the x-intercepts. Is this an upwards or downwards parabola? How would we know? We look at the coefficient of x, it's positive. So it's an upwards parabola. So again, we're going to draw our upwards parabola, and these x-intercepts of this parabola is 2 and 3. And we are interested again where it is greater or equal to 0. So this is above, but the equal to is saying we're including 0. Now at 2 and 3, that's when it is equal to 0. And you can substitute 2 and 3 into this equation and you'll see you'll get 0. So we want this part of the parabola, including the x-intercept, and this part of the parabola. So this corresponds to x being less than 2, and this corresponds to x being greater or equal to 3. Let's do one more. So number 3, we have x squared plus 4x minus 5 is less than 0. So what we have is we're going to factorize first. So x plus 5 times x minus 1 gives us negative 5. And then our critical values, or x-intercepts, are x plus 5 is equal to 0, which is x is equal to negative 5, or x minus 1 is equal to 0, which is x is equal to 1. So again, these are x-intercepts. So let's plot it. And it's a positive parabola. So this here is negative 5, and this is positive 1. And we are looking where it is less than 0. So less than 0 is below the x-axis. So it's this piece over here. And it's those x values for which the parabola is below. So it's x is between 1 and negative 5. And that is then the solution for this. And that's how to interpret it. So it's very important for you to be able to connect the different parts of your mathematics. So don't think of a quadratic inequality as just an inequality that you're solving. Try and think of it graphically. It will help you later in your functions questions as well to make this note. If you have not understood this video, please watch our previous 2 on quadratic inequalities. If you have, please watch the rest of the series.